Let it rip. San Diego's billion-dollar answer to the ongoing drought, the source of water from the largest desal plant in the Western Hemisphere.
The purpose is to be able to talk about them openly without ending up screaming at each other.
The holiday season divided by politics, the San Diego groups pairing food with open dialogue and the safe space created for debate.
Amazing, honestly. I didn't expect this much snow out here, and I love it.
An early Christmas present for snow fans on the West Coast, the mix of rain and snow offering relief for California's drought and what we can expect for the rest of the week. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Good evening. Thanks for joining us. I'm Amitha Sharma. The nation's largest seawater desalination plant is making fresh drinking water for San Diego County today. Several hundred people were on hand for the public dedication. KPBS reporter Eric Anderson says the plant is up and running, but the flow of water isn't drowning out critics.
The billion-dollar project will make about 50 million gallons of drinkable water a day. It's been in a testing phase for more than a month, and the technologically advanced facility has already filtered close to 2 billion gallons of water. San Diego County Water Authority's Mark Weston says it's appropriate that this plant comes online in the midst of a serious drought.
The roots of this facility really date back 25 years. It was a similar multi-year drought in 1991 when we were going to be cut 31% of our water supply from our wholesaler, which was Metropolitan Water District. That was our wake-up call because we had no other backup water supplies.
This facility will produce 7 to 10% of the region's water, enough for 400,000 households. And the plant will process enough water to fill an Olympic-sized swimming pool every 18 minutes. The plant is pulling water through intake valves that used to serve a nearby power plant. Once the water comes into the facility, it's filtered. Organic and inorganic materials are separated. Water is pressurized and then forced through long plastic canisters that house dense reverse osmosis filters. The filters take the salt out of the water. Peter McLagan of Poseidon Water says then there is more filtering.
So we percolate the water through limestone chips and increase the alkalinity and hardness. Then that water is now behind me in this tank, and it goes into another tank over this wall where we add chlorine to disinfect the water.
After all that, the water begins its journey toward customers. It's pumped inland to a water treatment plant where it's mixed with imported water and piped to customers. McLagan says it's rewarding to see the facility doing what it was designed to do because so many people invested so much time in the project.
We're so happy to see the plant now fully operational, and I think it's going to change the way we look at water for decades to come in California. This will not be obviously the last seawater desalination plant to be built in California.
McLagan says up to 15 other desalination projects are under consideration in the state, including a Poseidon Water project almost like this one in Huntington Beach.
The drinking water will come from this ocean, but there are rough winter waves out here today, and there are also waves of controversy.
Critics have asked tough questions since the idea was first proposed, and they're not done. Marco Gonzalez works with the Coast Law Group. He says the plant's opening doesn't signal an end to the debate.
At the same time that we have Poseidon throwing up its arms in victory, claiming to provide as much as 10% of our regional water needs, we also have the County Water Authority going up to the State Water Resources Control Board and the governor and complaining that we don't need to conserve water anymore.
He's talking about a water authority request to ease the region's conservation mandate because the plant is generating water. Surfrider's Julia Chun-Heer says water managers should be considering alternatives before they approve such an expensive water source. Desalinated water costs twice as much as imported water.
Desalination may very well be a part of the equation, but it certainly should be the last tool in the toolbox, not the first. And I think the public should also understand, and when it comes to marine life impacts, that the power plant at Carlsbad was moving away from their open ocean intake because of its marine life impacts.
Opponents are not happy the plant is open for business, but they take solace in the fact that if other desalination plants are built in California, they'll have to meet more rigorous standards than this facility did. Eric Anderson, KPBS News.
KPBS video journalist Katie Shulev helped produce that story. A program to keep juvenile delinquents out of jail could get a big funding boost tomorrow. The San Diego County Board of Supervisors is voting to expand a program called Restorative Community Conference. It connects minors who have been arrested with their crime victims. Mediators with the National Conflict Resolution Center then come up with a restitution program that keeps the minors out of juvenile hall.
The victim benefits because he or she has a chance to meet with the youth and have a sense of repairing the harm. And ideally the youth, having gone through the process and seen the victim and the impact that his or her behaviors had on the victim, it's life-changing and it puts the youth on the right path.
Supporters say the program also saves money in the courts and law enforcement. County funding would total $1 million over 5 years, matched with $1 million of private donations. Most of California's paroled sex offenders who were once prohibited from residing where kids congregate can now live near parks and schools. The change comes after a court ruled earlier this year that the 2,000-foot residency ban only applies to child molesters. Corrections officials say the number is high because its new policy requires a link between where the sex offender lives, the crime, and potential to reoffend. Since most sex offenders are not strangers to their victims, officials say they cannot be barred from living near a school or park simply because they committed a crime against a child. Health and Human Services is facing money challenges due to an unexpected large wave of unaccompanied minors entering the U.S. The agency's secretary says it lacks the funds needed to house the children. They're trying to avoid what happened in the summer of 2014 when tens of thousands of kids and families flooded into Border Patrol shelters. More than 10,000 unaccompanied minors crossed the border to the U.S. in October and November, prompting agents to open new shelters in California and Texas. President Obama says the U.S. and its allies are making inroads in the fight against the Islamic State. The president says ISIS leaders are being removed. The group is losing thousands of miles of territory in Iraq and Syria, and its finance network is being disrupted.
All this said, we recognize that progress needs to keep coming faster. No one knows that more than the countless Syrians and Iraqis living every day under ISIL's terror, as well as the families in San Bernardino and Paris and elsewhere who are grieving the loss of their loved ones.
The president's remarks are part of an effort to reassure Americans they are safe ahead of the holidays. They're finally home for the holidays. Families and loved ones had a special homecoming for their service members. KPBS reporter Steve Walsh says they're part of the 4,500 Marines and sailors from the Essex Amphibious Ready Group.
Wait a little bit longer, guys.
After 7 months at sea, the men and women of the Smokin' Aces were back in San Diego. Most of the time, they were in the Persian Gulf, ready to use their search and rescue skills to back up the fighter planes participating in the bombing campaign against ISIS.
The majority of our support, honestly, is available in the event that something were to occur. So we can, but we don't always have to, which is a good thing.
This latest deployment had gone on long enough that he met his 2-month-old son for the first time on the tarmac at Naval Air Station North Island. Libby Cantrell was waiting for her husband, Joe. Both of them have been through multiple deployments. This time, she was the one home with their 2 young boys.
To be honest, it's super hard being deployed, but it's so hard doing the Navy thing and being home with the kids. Like, it's a full-time job on both sides. The work never ends.
Components of the USS Essex Amphibious Ready Group have been returning home since Sunday, when the Marines returned to Camp Pendleton. Smokin' Aces flew more than 1,600 hours during their 7th-month deployment. Steve Walsh, KPBS News.
Visions of a white Christmas dancing in their heads. A December storm system hit the West Coast from San Diego to Seattle. Associated Press reporter Sandy Kozel shows us where business was booming thanks to all the snow.
A mix of rain and snow hit much of the western U.S. over the weekend, bringing welcome relief to the drought-parched region. Rain fell in both Southern California and the San Francisco Bay Area. The Sierra Nevada and areas around Reno, Nevada got both rain and snow. This is California's third winter-like storm in a week. Snow fell to the north in Washington state, which has also been dealing with the long-running drought. Local weather forecasters are reporting as much as a foot fell in Snoqualmie, east of Seattle. That was especially good news for a ski resort in that town. It opened for business over the weekend.
You know, this is really the best reply to last year that you could get.
Amazing, honestly. I didn't expect this much snow out here, and I love it.
Local officials are cautioning drivers to take precautions, including using snow chains on tires.
If you come prepared to drive in winter conditions and your vehicle is prepared to drive in the snow, you're going to make it over this hill.
Moist weather has been forecast for the West due to the El Nino weather system. However, a National Weather Service meteorologist in Seattle says he doesn't believe El Nino caused the latest northwest storms. Sandy Kozel, The Associated Press.
Surfers were tempted by the high surf conditions at San Diego beaches. This is what it looked like at Ocean Beach over the weekend. It looks like San Diego will get a break from stormy weather. Molly Cochran shows us what to expect in tonight's KPBS weather report.
Well, here we go again across the southwest. Another storm system impacting the region, bringing in the cloud cover, some rain into northern and central California, and also some mountain snow. Here's a look at our satellite and radar over the past 6 hours. And as we bring it closer to home, San Diego is under clear conditions, and that's really how we're going to stay over the next couple days. So we are feeling some impacts, though, from this system, including some cooler air filtering in, as well as some higher surf. We do have a high surf advisory in effect until tomorrow afternoon, and we have seen some damage. The Ocean Beach Pier actually still closed due to some of that high surf out there. So take it easy, especially to any of those boaters. But we can see across much of the region, pretty quiet for the remainder of tonight. Our future winds going to get a little bit breezy, especially in the mountainous areas, but other than that, going to stay relatively quiet for the remainder of tonight. Here's a look at our overnight lows. For this time of year, we should be in the mid to upper 40s for an overnight low. We should get there in San Diego, but we are anticipating some cooler conditions in the mountainous regions. We do have a frost advisory in effect. That's going to expire right around Tuesday at 8 a.m. So we'll need the heavier coats out there, especially in the higher elevations. As we play this into the afternoon, temperatures going to be into the 60s and into the early morning hours of Wednesday. We can see those temperatures staying pretty seasonable for this time of year. Wednesday afternoon, expecting to hit 63 in San Diego, in the Chula Vista area, right around 62, Oceanside at 62 as well. So we'll stay a little bit warmer along the immediate coastline with some cooler air farther inland. Here's a look at the early morning hours of Thursday. So the lighter jacket going to be needed in San Diego as those temperatures get into the mid to upper 40s. For the rest of tonight, we'll have clear skies for most, 47 in San Diego, right around 41 in Chula Vista, Oceanside at 31 degrees, so a little bit cooler here. We'll need those extra layers if you are headed out for tonight. Here's a look at the immediate coastline for the next 5 days or so, and we can just see really not going to have too much, if any, precipitation come in the way of rain over the next couple days. So we're good to go. Plenty of sunshine on Tuesday, mostly sunny skies for Wednesday with a daytime high of 63 degrees. The inland regions also going to be looking at that sunshine for the middle half of the week into Thursday as well. Mountainous regions a little bit cooler, 39 on Tuesday for a daytime high, into the 40s on Wednesday, and the desert regions also going to be staying dry. Back to you guys.
Is El Nino making a difference in the drought? KPBS science reporter David Wagner says not yet. He brings us an update from the KPBS Drought Tracker.
San Diego may have gotten a smattering of rain over the weekend, but don't let that fool you. So far, this may not have been the driest year in California's drought, but it has also not been the wettest. As of this morning, the state had racked up 26% of the statewide rainfall it normally receives between October 1st and April 1st. Looking up in the Sierra Mountains, the snowpack has climbed to an average of 21% of normal. So that's more rain and snow than we've seen at this point in some recent years, but these are not drought-busting numbers, at least not yet.
Everything seems to be pretty kind of close to the normal line where we should be this time of year. But to quote, bust the drought, of course, we'd like to see it much higher than normal.
Sam Michabelis, who we just heard from there, notes that these numbers aren't so different from rain and snow levels seen at this point during previous strong El Niños. He says current conditions still offer hope that storms could build up in January and February, putting a real dent in the drought. David Wagner, KPBS News.
Use the KPBS Drought Tracker yourself at kpbs.org/drought tracker. Oceanside Harbor has become home to one of the few bilge pumps that can separate oil from water. Bilge water collects in the hull of the boats and must be regularly pumped out. Typically, oil and gas from the engine mixes with the water and causes coastal pollution. Sponsors of the new facility say those at the helm of Oceanside boats are totally on board. The Bay Foundation, along with the Oceanside Harbor District, paid for the pump-out facility and equipment. Most bilge pumps are located on the boat. The Oceanside bilge pump is on land. It took more than a year of legal back and forth with the North County Transit District, but a state court of appeals has granted the release of a partial summary of a leadership study of the public agency's top managers. Leo Castaneda is a reporter with iNewsSource, which sued for the study's release. He has this story.
The comprehensive assessment program was carried out by the UC San Diego Rady School of Management. It tested 12 of the top managers at the public transit agency. The assessment measures how some of the top managers stack up on key competencies like resiliency and execution. It also looks at business skills like finance and marketing. Overall, the district scored a 2.9. NCTD said in a written statement that's the average for the executives taking the program is a 3. Now, NCTD managers scored best on resiliency and adaptability. The worst scores came in finance and operations. Only one manager had finance listed as a strength. None of the 12 NCTD managers that went through the program got a strength rating when it came to operations. 10 of them had it marked as a developmental opportunity. To see the study and by breakdown of category, go to iNewsSource.org. For KPBS, I'm iNewsSource reporter Leo Castaneda.
On the health desk, Covered California is concentrating its enrollment efforts on parts of the state that have high numbers of uninsured residents. From our North County Bureau, KPBS health reporter Kenny Goldberg says the exchange has identified 6 hotspots in San Diego County.
The local hotspots include parts of the South Bay, parts of East County, and some San Diego County communities south of the 8. 3 North County cities are also on the target list, including Vista, San Marcos, and Escondido. The Vista Community Clinic does outreach 7 days a week to try to enroll people in Covered California. The clinic's chief operating officer, Michelle Monroe, says people are surprised at what's available.
I think it's very surprising. I think there's a lot of word out there that there's these really high deductibles and a lot of out-of-pocket costs. And when they actually look at the numbers and the plans that they're eligible for, they find that it can be very reasonable.
Last year, nearly 106,000 San Diego County residents enrolled in a Covered California plan. Kenny Goldberg, KPBS News.
A newly proposed rule in California may compel companies and organizations to disclose more of where their lobbying money is going. The top 10 employers of lobbyists reported most of their spending as other payments to influence last year. This is a category that doesn't require disclosures of who they paid or what the money went towards. The State Fair Political Practices Commission will vote next month on a rule that would. There's an unexpected surprise for some California taxpayers. State officials announced today there are nearly $30 million in tax refunds waiting to be collected by 49,000 lucky taxpayers. The refunds come from what the U.S. Postal Service returned to the Franchise Tax Board this year. This is due to people moving and not leaving a forwarding address. Other programs that may qualify Californians for a piece of the pie as well.
This doesn't even have to be just last year's refund or this year's refund. If you have a refund due to you, it never expires. So even if it was 10 years from now, 15 years ago, go ahead and give us a call. Who knows, you may have a refund waiting.
Right here, number 95.
Californians can check if they have an unclaimed refund by visiting ftb.ca.gov. Hanukkah is a time for celebration and unity, but some in San Diego say the Jewish community has never been more divided than it is now. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen shows us friends who are trying to bridge the divide of politics and find reconciliation.
There's the rabbi.
Hannah Cohen is getting ready for dinner tonight at her home in Escondido.
Hello.
Her guests are all friends and members of Temple Adat Shalom in Poway, but they differ strongly when it comes to the politics of Israel. Half belong to the local chapter of J Street, which is pro-Israel but critical of its hawkish government. The other half supports AIPAC, the American Israel Public Affairs Committee. That group takes a more aggressive approach to Middle East politics. Cohen says divisions in the Jewish community got worse this past summer.
And a lot of it was because of the Iran agreement. There were many groups here that really lobbied hard against it. In certain settings, it's uncomfortable and you don't talk about it. And it's sort of like the elephant in the room, that you know there are people there that really were very upset about it. And I think there'll be a few people here tonight, my friends, that were upset about it. Hello. Hi.
Hannah invited her friends Fran and Bob Goldstein and Rabbi David Castiglione, who are all sympathetic to AIPAC. She, her husband Elliot Edelstein, and her friend Mary Klein are with J Street. As the group got settled, I asked them all why they thought the two sides of their community had stopped talking politics.
My points are not going to change anyone's mind. And, you know, that's just where I don't know if other people come from the same place, that while we're friends, let's talk about other things, you know, other aspects of our Judaism, other things in our community.
Do you feel like you need to talk about these issues that have divided the community so much
to
change people's minds?
I guess I don't think that the purpose is necessarily to change people's minds as much as to inform people and to get informed from those conversations. I mean, I always want to hear what the other side thinks because I don't have all of the information. I mean, it's impossible for any one person to.
Rabbi David Castiglione agreed the community should have an open dialogue despite its divisions.
Arguing goes as far back as Moses and God, right? Abraham and God. It is part and parcel of who we are. So to argue, to disagree, that's all fine and good. It really is part of the process. But to harbor venom in one's heart, or to let venom spit from one's mouth as you're speaking, that cuts against the grain of Jewish value.
Throughout the evening, the conversation kept on shifting toward exactly what these friends were reluctant to discuss: the politics of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Clearly, they wanted to talk about it, and I asked them if it was getting easier.
I think it's easier to talk about because we're not yelling at each other and we're listening to each other.
It's never going to interfere with my feelings for these people. I love them.
We're good friends.
Right, so no matter what, it will not interfere, so we could say things here, and we're not holding any animosity towards each other or anything like that. I like to get out in the open, see how they feel, and maybe we can come to some agreement. If not, that's fine also. It's not going to interfere with us as best friends.
There were moments of tension at the table, but there were even more moments of friendship and joking around.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam.
And those moments made it clear that despite their differences, the things that unite these friends are stronger than the things that divide them.
I don't know, Fran. You've written a whole new Mishnah on how to light candles.
I know.
Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
Well, because Hannah didn't give me the...
KPBS video journalist Nick McVicker helped produce that story.
I'm Judy Woodruff. On the next News Hour, we examine what does or doesn't get done in Paris as the climate talks come to a close. That's Monday on the PBS News Hour.
Now hiring new astronauts. NASA opened its application website today for a new batch of astronauts that will blaze the trail to Mars. Candidates need to be U.S. citizens with a bachelor's degree in science, math, or engineering. More than 6,000 people applied for NASA's last astronaut class in 2013. Only 8 were chosen. NASA will accept applications through February 18th. Here's a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. Coming up on Morning Edition, mega bookstores may be biting the dust. A different story for comic book stores in San Diego. This savvy business planning that's all about giving customers what they want. And on Midday Edition, the man who wrote White Christmas and so many other classics is the subject of a new one-man show at La Jolla Playhouse. Hershey Felder as Irving Berlin. That's tomorrow on KPBS Radio. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thank you for joining us. Have a great evening.